Peace to you. I hope this finds you well. It kind of makes me crazy, a little bit crazy. I was listening to there's a panel discussion, Peace and Justice. She, a female, she conducts the panel very well. I like popping in, visiting. And there was a discussion between a Christian and a Muslim, or Muslims, and I was working in the comments, but I couldn't get his attention, and I asked if I could be. I didn't click the button, but I asked if I could be brought up. No invitation was sent, so I feel compelled to make this video. The thing for me, I followed Jesus for 40 years. The thing for me, coming to the Quran and finding out that God spared Jesus from the crucifixion, just blew my mind. It just made sense, because for 40 years I listened to Jesus talk about love. I listened to Jesus talk about forgiveness. I listened to Jesus talk about the things that were available to us if we believed in the one true God. I listened to those things. And I listened when he was in Gethsemane and he says, Father, if it be possible, take this cup from me. The Lord God Almighty spared him. So what, I started out by saying it kind of makes me crazy. What makes me crazy is Christians would rather see the sacrifice than the love of the Lord God Almighty. I don't understand that. Did they not listen to a word Jesus said? My goodness. They would rather see him hanging on a cross than see that the Lord God Almighty said, very well, and made a new plan. This whole idea that, quoting these things after Jesus' crucifixion, you can take that part of the Bible and, oh God, for your own sake, just ignore it and turn to the truth. The Quran was sent to confirm and to correct certain things. As a Christian, if you're watching this, as a Christian, you have to ask yourself why in three Gospels, do they tell almost the identical episode of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And as you consider that, consider where else in the Gospels do they meet? Where else is there unity? In those three, there is unity. Jesus 3 times goes to the Father and asks that this cup be taken from him. And the other thing is this whole idea of Father. See, in the Quran, when I read it, it's God says, Allah has not, the Quran says Allah has not begotten a son. And I think there's a distinct difference between what certain people in the early times of the church and the formulation of the Bible decided was the appropriate language for it. Jesus being the Son and God being the Father, it's not in the physical sense. The Lord God Almighty did not begot a son. Jesus is not the only begotten Son. It's not begotten. And I think that's what I'm discovering in the Quran also. I don't speak Arabic, so I don't know. But a lot of times when I read about Jesus and Allah, it distinctly says, I have not begotten a son. The Lord God Almighty has not begotten a son. He says if he wants something to happen, he just says be. And I think that's what happened with Jesus. There is something very significant there. But what drives me crazy is the Christians would rather see the sacrifice than the love of the Lord God Almighty. Why don't they see it? And why aren't you Muslims showing it to them.